When you look at your blossoming body graph, it's like looking at a blueprint of your genetic makeup, your hardwiring. In integral human design circles, we consider your body graph to be a physical map or physical, spiritual, and emotional imprinting. It's the embodiment of your story, your musical or your life score, your personal, and in a way our collective anthology, all encoded in a map. Another way to think of the body graph is to think of it like a snapshot look at your DNA, of your waking personality, a map of how energy flows within your body and between you and your environment. Your body graph contains 9 centers, all connected by a network of channels or circuits. These 9 centers are based on the Hindu Brahmin tradition, where they're known as chakras, or hubs of subtle energy within the body. While you can find some parallels between the way that human design looks at these centers and the way that the Hindu tradition looks at them, there are some really important differences. The obvious one is that human design operates out of a 9-centered system as opposed to a 7-centered system. And another important difference is that human design, or at least in human design, energy isn't seen as moving upwards only from the root to the head or the crown. Instead, the energy moves in all directions through the various lines or channels connecting the various centers, reflective of the Kabbalah's tree of life. Some like to think of the body graph as a pressure sandwich. So pressure comes down from the head, right? And the head is acting as this mass storage and receptacle system, like the gray matter of the brain, and it's filled with a record of pretty much everything we've ever experienced, personally and collectively, whether or not we remember these experiences or even know that we're having them when we do. And this head center is there, kind of pressuring us to make sense of our past, to understand our future, and to contemplate the big and spiritual philosophical questions in life. Then there's the pressure coming up from below, up from the root center, as opposed to the mental pressure coming from above, right? This is a very physical pressure. This incredibly powerful motor fuels all of our experiences. It fuels the energy in our bodies, which then travels upwards, pushing its way through the various gates and channels. We kind of talk about them as black roads and red tunnels, in an effort to make it up to the throat. So in a very real way, you could say that all of the energy moving through us is trying to make it to the throat. In human design circles, we often say all roads lead to the throat, since the throat center is essentially that place in our body graph and in our lives where metamorphosis, communication, and manifestation takes place. So you could say that all of the inspiration we receive, all of the questions and thoughts in our head are trying to get to the throat so that we can communicate what's on our mind. And all of this fuel, all of this adrenalized feelings and intuitions and drives towards life are rising up from the root of our body, pushing their way towards the throat so that they can actually manifest in the physical world. Okay, so with that important perspective in mind, let's go back to the body graph and look at, from a more practical perspective, what it actually can show you. It shows you the kind of life student you are designed to be, how you are experienced by others, what kind of flower people see and smell and feel when they're around you. Your body graph reveals some of your most wonderful gifts, as well as the aspects of your nature that you can count on to be consistent and true. It also shows you where you're meant to go to school in life, what and who you're most attracted to, and how you can turn negative conditioning into positive nurturance and deep wisdom. It shows you the areas in your life where you're wonderfully open, flexible, and receptive. And it shows you where the kind of garden you're planted in makes a huge difference to how you feel and what you express. It illuminates the sacred relationship existing inside of you, your inner soulmates. It shows you how to surrender to the relationship between your mind and your body, or your soul and your body, and how that can catapult your life purpose into being. It sheds tremendous light on the potentials, challenges, and chemistry in your relationships, and shows you how to make the most of that chemistry. Ultimately, human design, when held with a more integral worldview, is all about cooperation. It's all about healthy relationships, collaboration, creativity. It reveals your deepest shadows, your highest service, and your most mystical potential. It opens the door to a greater mystery, a contemplative transpersonal journey that can release your genius, radiance, and purpose. So I'd like to add an additional layer to our understanding about your body graph, our DNA, and the new biology that's emerging in the field of science. So again, this isn't a straight-on course in basic human design. I'm weaving in some things that I've learned along the way through my more integrally or transpersonally oriented studies with Richard Rudd and Werner and Laura Pitzel and others. Okay. So one thing we're learning, and Bruce Lipton is a wonderful voice for this kind of information, is just how much our perception controls and influences biology. So from a more traditional human design perspective, we might look at a body graph and see a code, almost like we're looking at an item in a grocery store. Once you have a code, it doesn't really change. You have no real choice about who you are. You can either accept your nature, or you can spend your life fighting against the inevitable. But the new paradigm emerging in science is showing us that even if you can't change the code, you can certainly impact its frequency, the vibration with which it's expressing itself. So I am not a scientist, and I'm sure there are plenty of places where you can learn a lot more about this from a super technical perspective. But I have learned something that I wanted to share with you, which is that our cell membranes actually have little switches on them, like little receptors that take in information from our environment. They're actually constantly interacting with our environment. And the way we see and interact with our environment can actually determine how our code plays out. Emotions, thoughts, and attitudes that are driven by fear or anger or jealousy or frustration actually have been proven to cause a contraction in our DNA. Just as what we tend to call positive attitudes or intentions or emotions, like gratitude, love, compassion, can actually cause our DNA to relax and open. So our cells are permanently coded, but our consciousness, whether we're being driven by fear and self-loathing or whether we're being driven by love and self-acceptance, ultimately determines our perceptions as well as our experiences. So when we talk about your body graph, I want you to think about it as a map of a living, breathing, receptive, ever-evolving, mysterious, beautiful territory. And I want you to remember that your DNA is listening all the time, responding to your attitudes more than you know.